Hi, everyone. We are so excited to have Tori on today. We are featuring her for our Patient Spotlight series. Tori is a lupus warrior and chronic illness advocate, and we are so excited to have you with us today. And thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, of course. Do you want to just talk a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and maybe a little bit about your diagnosis journey and what that's been like for you?
Sure. I am currently living in Lafayette, Indiana. I lived in South Carolina for a good chunk of my life and also New Hampshire, but I've been here for the last 10 years. I am a graduate from Purdue University with a bachelor's degree in psychology. I currently work as a case manager for people experiencing homelessness. Um, I have a kid. I'm a single mom. I started experiencing lupus symptoms very early on in my life. We had no idea what it was. And they were never bad enough to really pursue a diagnosis, and they never lasted very long. And then when I was 23, I was living in chronic pain, joint pain, headaches, random phantom pains where it just seemed like everything hurt.
Yeah.
And then I did not end up getting diagnosed until I was 27,
Oh, wow.
and then went through a lupus pregnancy and everything like that. And I've been in full remission for a year now.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Did you find it hard to find doctors who would advocate for you and advocate for your symptoms? Did you feel any sort of disconnection with like your providers when trying to, come to a conclusion about like why you might be experiencing some of these pains and stuff like that?
Definitely. And I feel like it wasn't exactly their fault always. Like I didn't have the words for what I was experiencing
Yeah.
other than joint pain or everything hurts. And they would take x-rays, they would take biopsies, everything like that, and everything seemed to be normal. And so they would give me pain pills and send me on my way.
Yeah.
And that, as you get adjusted to pain pills pretty easily, and the pain is back and worse than before when you try to get off of them.
Yeah.
So I did even have a rheumatologist at the beginning tell me that nothing was wrong, but something might be wrong later. So to keep taking these steroids long term.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I tried everything, including all natural routes, which actually almost killed me and ultimately led me to a diagnosis because I got so bad that it landed me in the ER, and then they were able to determine I had lupus.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
in terms of so like you've been dealing with these symptoms for a while, and it obviously was hard for you to find a diagnosis. Did you have a certain method for tracking your symptoms, or like kind of just like keeping in check like what you'd been noticing or the patterns developing or anything?
I did, yeah. I actually developed a bullet journaling page where I tracked my food, I tracked my sleep, I tracked my stress, and then I also tracked any symptoms that I was experiencing. And they were random. Like I would have these, I called them lip bubbles,
Hmm.
and it was just like random isolated swelling on my lip as if somebody like hit me really hard in my sleep. And it so I would kind of track my biggest triggers are stress and foods. And so I would track foods along with my stressors and notice that I would have like a lot of symptoms in the following days or weeks to a cheat meal or having a life event that would happen.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think
It's
that's
all on paper and extremely time consuming.
Yeah, and I think that's a similar case for a lot of other chronic illness patients is that like they're struggling to, keep track of their symptoms, and it's really hard when you don't have it all in one place. And as much as you can keep a journal, it is exhausting to have to remember to do that. And like there's so many little things and you're like, what could possibly be affecting this? And it's just there's so many components to have to consider. And so I think when we when Rory actually came up with the idea for the AilaHealth app, that was really her goal, is to make diagnosis easier for people and be able to, track your symptoms and figure out like what is it that's causing these things. So
Mhm. And
That's
I was both lucky and unlucky in that regard because I was to the point of disability where that was all I did in a day was track everything on paper. And some days even that was too exhausting. So I really did get, um, I really was able to nail down a lot of my triggers because that was all I had to do all day.
and once you finally discovered, these specific things that were triggering your flares or whatever it was, like what have been some of the things that you like to do to manage your stress and your other triggers?
Um, Exercise, that is one where I can tell if I haven't exercised for 3 or 4 days, I start getting joint pain, achiness. My mood level goes absolutely in the toilet. I struggle with depression and I don't take anything for it. And so I definitely do meditation and exercise as a way to keep that at a good level all day.
That's awesome. Um, our next question is if you could give any advice to someone at the beginning of their journey, like they haven't been diagnosed yet or they're just struggling with these symptoms and they're not really sure like where to get help or what to do, what advice would you give to them to maybe ease that process a little bit?
Um, don't follow what other people think about your body. Really listen to your body and know if something doesn't feel right or if a diagnosis doesn't feel right. I was misdiagnosed 3 different times with 3 different illnesses, and some of them were pretty devastating, like they shortened my life expectancy, and they didn't they didn't feel right. And so I kept going. And so I would definitely say, just even if you feel like you're being a pain in the butt by, going after doctors and being unsatisfied with your diagnosis, keep going until something makes sense because something will. Something definitely
Yeah.
will.
I think a lot of people in these situations really learn how to be their own advocate because
Mhm.
nobody knows the pain you're feeling and nobody can tell you kind of like, and it's hard to know. And then people just kind of throw all these ideas out there. And you're
And
like,
that's another thing, like, do not downplay your symptoms. Like,
yeah,
basically, the baseline for pain is 0, should be 0. So
yeah,
if you are anything above that, get help because that
yeah.
is not normal. And it's so, I mean, that was a huge problem when I finally found the rheumatologist that I have now, who actually got me to remission. She would ask me what hurt, and I would be like, well, I'm having a pretty good day, which means only 7 joints hurt instead of
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
And I, and so I would, do that. And she would look at all of my joints and be like, does this hurt? Does this hurt? Does this hurt? And she was very gentle and patient with me, kind of teaching me to understand that the baseline is nothing hurts.
Yeah.
And so just like go into that. And sadly, so many people with chronic illness, they've been struggling for it for so long and it's been coming on so gradually that they don't even remember what it's like not to hurt. And
Hmm.
I definitely got to that stage, but that should always be the goal and don't stop until it is reached.
Yeah. I think that's a really important piece of advice for a lot of people struggling with that because it is such a constant source of stress and physical pain in your life. So
Mhm.
that's really awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for being part of our interview series. I wanted to close it out with kind of a fun question we've been doing, and that is, what is your superpower? What do you
Hmm.
think your superpower would be? Could be anything. Doesn't have to be an actual superpower.
Um, for me, probably seeing people. So, like, seeing through any fronts that people have or any pain that they have and really seeing who is inside.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like that is something that I enjoy doing and that I'm pretty good at with my job and with my friends and everything like that.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily like seeing them as in, oh, I know who you really are in a
Yeah,
negative way, but just like seeing the kid inside them and seeing
yeah,
who they try to be.
yeah. And being able to connect with people on a deeper level is such a great quality to have. So yeah, well, you can follow Tori on Instagram. It's at Tori, Torie Brime, correct?
Brame,
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 Brame.
AME. Yep,
Okay,
just like it sounds.
All right. Well, thank you so much for interviewing with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.